Welcome to the IT Career Energizer podcast. For anyone who wants to build and grow a career in IT, develop and improve your strengths and skills, be inspired and motivated by the successes of others, manage your career progression, and achieve your IT career goals. And now, your host, Phil Burgess.
Welcome to episode 328 of the IT Career Energizer podcast. My guest on today's show was the first mobile engineer at Siri before it was acquired by Apple, as well as co-founder of Ditto, which was acquired by Groupon. He is now the co-founder and CEO of Centered, designing the platform and building a team that shares his passion for achieving mindfulness at work. So it's my pleasure to welcome to the podcast, Ulf Schwekendiek.
Wow, you could say that name. This is so good. Welcome.
Right.
Thanks for having me. And man, it's been over 300 episodes already. Can you believe it?
It has. I know. It does sound a lot. I mean, when I started, I thought, if I get to 10, it'll be a success.
So what's the next milestone? 1,000?
Well, maybe 500 would be a good one, but I think 1,000 could be a good objective.
With your pace,
definitely.
you'll be there so quickly.
Right. So, Ulf, that was a very much a brief intro and didn't really tell us a lot about Centered. So maybe you could give us a bit of an insight into what Centered is and what you do.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. Have you ever been in an airplane completely unplugged and opened your computer?
I don't think so.
You never opened your computer in an airplane before?
Well, I'm just trying to think. To be honest, I'm terrible. I tend to be an iPad user.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. But yeah, occasionally you're probably right. I probably have opened my laptop now and again.
So the idea is with the Centered, what we're trying to do, and feel free to cut that last piece out if it doesn't work for you. Usually the answer is yes to this. That this moment that you experience of being completely unplugged from everybody, and just being able to focus on your work. That is what we're trying to recreate with Centered. Centered is a flow state app. It helps you to do something really great with your time. It basically transforms your work environment into a super focused state and helps you get more work done.
Right. Okay. And where did the idea come from, and how long have you been doing this?
Yeah, so we've been around for about 2 years, and it's quite funny. I always wanted to found a startup on my own, and finally, a couple of years ago, took the jump over from working with amazing serial entrepreneurs to finally say, okay, I want to do this myself. And I quit my job and I sat down, and there was nothing. There was really nothing I thought would be worthwhile doing. And I ended up actually saying, all right, you know what? If the idea doesn't come from the heart, if it's not something you wake up with or you go to bed with every night thinking about, it's not worth pursuing. And you cannot force that spark in your life. And I decided, you know what? When it comes, the universe will send it to me, but it's not happening right now. So I actually ended up joining a lovely food delivery startup here in the Bay Area called Postmates, who is now part of Uber. And I was in charge of one of the verticals there. I helped with the fleet team. That is everything about fulfillment. Think of like the people on the ground that pick up your food from a restaurant and bring it to you. And the teams around that, like a mobile team as an engineering manager, I was there, mobile team, some back-end teams. It was very interesting. But that's where the first time the idea came into mind of how do people really work? And specifically, how do engineers work? Most of the engineers became engineers because they wanted to build something. They wanted to do something great. They didn't want to be in meetings. They didn't want to be in planning sessions and whatnot. They wanted to code And that's what really gets them into it. And the extension of that is they wanted to get into flow, this state of just being completely concentrated on one thing and building something, making something with your head and not being distracted. And I promise you, Silicon Valley tech companies don't have that a lot. I'm sure your listeners heard this before. I've at least said this before, where they would say, I got to work early today because I wanted to get some real work done.
Yeah.
And you heard that. Well, probably you said even yourself, oh, I'm just going to go an hour early to work today because, it's quiet and I can get some real work done. And that sounded like such a silly idea to me, that people have to change the way they live their lives in order to actually do what they wanted to do in their job and be successful in it. So I started researching different methodologies on how people don't have to get early to their work and how you can structure your workday differently to actually, quote unquote, get some real work done. Again, enjoyable work. There are methodologies like the Pomodoro technique. Have you ever heard of that?
I have, yes. Yep.
So the very short one, you set a kitchen timer to 25 minutes, for instance. That's a good cycle, and you do one thing for 25 minutes concentrated. The world can end around you. You want to stay on that one thing for 25 minutes. You give yourself a 5-minute break, rinse and repeat. What that does is you will lose the context switch of replying to an email, of responding to a message, responding to a coworker who wants something from you in that time, because context switches are really, really expensive. And that is actually the largest problem with you feeling very tired at the end of your workday. It is not about actually the work that you've done with your brain. It's about resetting your brain every couple of seconds, switching context. That is what gets you really tired. So the less you do that, you actually are still kind of refreshed even in the afternoon. You don't need to have that fourth cup of coffee because you switch less context, you're more concentrated. So we started experimenting with these methodologies and they worked wonders already in our teams. People were happier, output was higher. Up to a point where I thought about music and how that could actually affect your mental state. Everything I was thinking about was how to get you deeper into this flow state quicker. And once I had a couple of ideas together, I could prove that they actually work. I figured, well, maybe there's an app idea here. Like maybe we can build an app that helps you automatically to add a timer to your Pomodoro sessions, add music to what you do, give you an assistant that would be like me usually before, automatically that tells you, hey, Phil, you have 5 minutes left on your task, or you have 10 minutes left in your current Pomodoro cycle, or when I see you go to Twitter or Facebook during your Pomodoro cycle, you would never do that, obviously.
Yes.
Let's just say I like catch you on Twitter. I would just gently nudge you and tell you, look, do you think Twitter is really part of this, what you wanted to achieve in this 25 minutes right now? Or is this just another context switch and you're losing time? All of this I put together in the first version of an app, and that was the birth of Centered. The moment I learned that it worked, I quit my job. I raised a pre-seed round of financing. I hired a small team. A year later, I raised a little larger round of financing. I grew the team. And this is where we're at right now. And
right. And in terms of the availability of the app, presumably people can pick it up from the usual places?
The usual places. It's a desktop app right now because that is where you do your work. So you can go to sender.app and download our desktop app. We have a lightweight browser version. If you don't want to commit to installing an app yet on your computer, or your IT team wants to have a second review on that, you can always try it out directly in the browser as well. But the idea is, yes, you install it on your desktop, you link it to the services that you already use, say Slack, for instance, because once you get into a centered session, we automatically put your computer on do not disturb. So you don't get, annoyed by all these constant notifications that computers are so great giving you. We put your Slack on do not disturb and let your coworkers know that you're in a centered session, so that they can just wait a little bit before they nudge you. And
Right.
and yeah, so centered app, that's where you get it from, and that's where our current community lives.
Okay, good. And we'll come back to that towards the end of the interview, I'm sure.
Of course.
Yeah. But Ulf, can you share with us a career tip, one that the audience may not be aware of and perhaps should be?
Yeah, and I think that is not as controversial as some might think. But if you are a maker and a builder, just never lose that. I'm still coding 4 to 6 hours a day, and I love it. I love to get into that flow, and I love to building up products. So I think a lot of people advancing their careers think they got into engineering, they liked it. Eventually, they think they need to have an promotion into engineering management, and not realizing that is really a full career change and not really a level up in what you do. So I just urge people who love to build something to always continue to build something, learn new technologies, have side projects, just keep on building.
Yeah, it was interesting to hear that you managed to find that time.
That is the interesting thing. If you don't context switch as much, you actually can dedicate a good chunk amount of time on what you're really passionate about.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Good. And Ulf, can you share with us your worst career moment and what you learned from that experience?
I think that goes hand in hand what I just mentioned. I think there was a time where I felt I needed to be a manager because it felt like what other people did in the advancement of their careers without really understanding what that would mean. And don't get me wrong, I love being a manager now because I feel I dedicated actually the time learning that completely, entirely new job. It is not an engineer trying to fix bugs in people. That was the hardest part. And I wish I would just have known that earlier, that I would really have to spend time relearning an entire career, really making that shift. And yeah, I think I always give that advice is find something that you're really passionate about and not something that society just shows you, as your next step that you would need to do.
Yeah, that's very good advice. And Ulf, can you tell us about your career highlight to date?
Oh, there have been so many small and big highlights. I think it's fun to talk about highlights, but I think it's so much more powerful to talk about your failures, because highlights are the things that make you warm and fuzzy. And maybe it's like a good thing to brag about, like it was amazing to be part of that early Siri team, like helping the Siri app to relaunch in the App Store. Yes, there was actually a Siri app in the App Store, believe it or not, before it was just part of iOS. That was definitely a highlight. Selling our first company afterwards that I co-founded was a big highlight. But I think much more the really hard decisions you had to make in life, and the ones that you made wrong, and are really the things that made me who I am today. And that is, I think, a lot of people love to talk about the highlights of what they do, but it's tough to talk about the things that didn't go well, and that's really what makes you.
I mean, I asked both questions for a particular purpose. So you're right. I agree with you that you tend to learn a lot more by things that don't go as well. And your worst career moments are actually what makes you, as you say, who you are. But I feel the highlights can be just as important because they give you that sort of boost, or sort of, they energize you. They give you that feeling of achievement that helps drive you forward as well. So that both of them, if you like, contribute to the way you progress your career.
Absolutely agree. And there's a good friend of mine taught me to count my blessings every day. And that sounds a little spiritual woo-woo. That's not what I mean by that. I really mean think of the great things you have in your life every day, because that is actually triggering something in your brain to make you feel good.
Yeah.
One thing is always good to remember, that thoughts cause emotion. And you're like, any emotion that you have in your brain comes from somewhere, and it will come from a thought. So if you're down, next time you should think about what was I thinking that caused this feeling right now. And when you're happy too, it's like nice to like go back and think of like, oh wow, what was I thinking that made me really happy right now? And remember that next time when you're down, because you can change your emotions very quickly.
Yes, you can. Yep. Okay, Ulf, can you tell us what excites you about the tech industry and the futures of careers in IT and tech?
I think it's so interesting to see how the industry evolved. I think the industry is a lot more accessible these days, especially entry jobs with, programs like Hack Reactor, Code Academy, where you can really come from any background. And if you like to solve puzzles, you can become an engineer. That is like one really exciting piece. I think the other one is the like development of, I call it emotional software, where we're slowly learning that software is not a tool anymore. Software is just part of your life. And like anything else that is part of your life, it causes you emotions. And the way you design software, you can actually apply the same methodologies that people do who produce movies. We're in the business of, producing emotions, really. Um, if you use those kind of principles on software, I think software evolves into something that we haven't really felt much before, outside of, the like Siris and Alexas and whatnot in the world.
Yeah, that's interesting to hear. I like the comparison as well with the movies. That will be interesting if we actually go that route, definitely.
And think about it, it's happening more and more where, I think a couple of years ago, way before the IPO, Airbnb famously hired a script writer from Pixar to write out user stories and like how the user feels and whatnot. That's already, I think, was like the one of the birthplaces of like emotional software design.
Yeah, that's good, isn't it? Okay, Ulf, we're going to go into the reveal round now. We're going to find out a little bit more about you and the way you think. Are you ready for this?
Always.
So what first attracted you to a career in IT?
This sounds very stereotypical. As you might have guessed now from this accent, I'm from Germany originally. I live in the Bay Area for half of my life, but engineering somehow was always in my blood. I had, thankfully, to my uncle, a C64 really early in my life, and somehow with his help, I learned BASIC really really early, in like my first decade of my life, and loved making something. And the funny thing is, it always kept on going, that streak to today, where I love building something and I just went for wanting to keep on building software really early on. The interesting piece is I actually, I'm sure my parents would not love to hear this, but I do not have a high school degree. I was really, really bad in high school. I only wanted to code. I loved math. I loved physics. And I basically did not attend any other class. And hence I failed high school. somehow I made it into university and got two master's degrees afterwards, but all specifically for computers, UX, product, and I think it just shows like if that my upbringing was always about building something, and that's what got me here where I am right now. I just kept on improving and building.
Right. And what is the best career advice you've ever received?
It was from, again, it sounds so obvious to me now. It wasn't to me then, and maybe it is not obvious to some of your listeners. It came from Adam Chair, the co-founder of Siri, who told me one day about startups and startup valuations and dilutions of startups. And he said, "Ulf, just think of dilution differently. You always want to have a smaller piece of a much larger pie." And I don't know why it was just that sentence. It was like so visual to me of like, oh, I guess I shouldn't be worried about raising another round of financing, or my shares out of a sum being less, because they're 10 times more worth than they were before. And it wasn't clear to me. I think especially when you get into startups, as an engineer, where you're most of the time not the founder, and you just join something early, all you can think of is percentages, and they don't actually matter that much.
Yeah. No, that's interesting to hear. Yeah. And conversely, what is the worst career advice you've ever received?
And that's an interesting one. I feel like I I try to surround myself with people that I really like,
Yeah.
um, and they usually give great advice. I think it went along the way of an old boss of mine told me once that I should not be speaking up to our CEO because it would make all of us look bad, and I disregarded that entirely.
If you were to begin your career again in today's world, what would you do?
I would be very focused on learning ML, AI, neural nets, because I don't know much about it, and it's changing the world so quickly, and it's changing the field of computer science so quickly. And I wish I had more knowledge in it.
And what career objectives are you currently focusing on?
Currently, I am actually outside of engineering, learning just so quickly, and so interestingly about how it's different to actually run a business. I've never been a CEO before. I was always a technical co-founder, engineering partner. So there's a lot new to learn,
Yeah.
and the biggest part is how to be more of a salesperson, how to sell your product, how to you know try to sometimes not be as humble, and because if nobody understands what you're doing, might as well not do it. And sadly enough, if you don't market your product, nobody will know about it, and it can be the best product that will change this world, but if nobody knows about it, the world is not going to be changed. So that's something I focus a lot on right now, is like, how do we do product-led growth? How do we market our product? How basically is everything out of engineering. We have an amazing engineering team now that is world class, and so I can step out of that a little bit more these days, and learn new things.
Yeah, that's good, isn't it? New skills, new experiences.
It's the best part of being alive. It's like a constant iteration of yourself, and getting better and better at what you do.
Yeah. And what's the number one non-technical skill that has helped you in your career so far?
It is so funny, but my most non-technical skill is actually learning about like human psychology, and learning how the brain works, learning again what I was talking earlier about, like motion and emotion, like thoughts, really learning a lot about psychology, um, goes really into the root of interpersonal conflicts, about conflicts with your code. It's really the root of like our existence. And I think, I was very lucky that it was part of my undergrad curriculum, some psychology, but I know it's not the standard in most schools. And I wish it would be more, even if you become an engineer, to like learn more about how the brain works, how people work. I think it's super helpful.
Yes, indeed. And what do you do to keep your own career energized?
Again, always just iterate on yourself. Learn very quickly when you did something wrong. Tag it, admit it. Don't be shy about it. I'm not the person that never apologizes. I probably apologize a little too much. Maybe that was my time in Canada. Who knows? Acknowledge quickly your faults. Don't let your ego take over, and just improve. Like, life is an iteration.
Yeah, absolutely. And what do you do in your spare time away from technology?
Well, so there are two answers to this. There was an answer that I would have given you 4 months ago, and there's an answer that you get right now. I'm going to give you both.
Okay.
Right. The answer that I am going to give you both is I have a 4-month-old at home who is filling out my world. It's our first child. She is amazing, and life will never be the same. And it's just it feels like walking through a portal, and the world is still the same, yet it's completely different. The tree outside is still the same tree, yet I see that tree with completely new eyes, and it was really a life-changing moment. Now, beforehand, I used to be very active in the paragliding community here in the United States. I love to go paragliding and flying and traveling with my wings and flying in all sorts of places and taking friends and teaching them the way of flight. The idea of like being high up in the air without any engine and just feeling nothing around you, maybe see a bird that soars with you, just cleared my head so lovely that nothing else ever could. But then there's a 4-month-old now, and I stopped that entirely because I don't want to risk my life for it.
Indeed. Yes. Responsibility. That's what it's about.
Yeah, I don't know if it's responsibility or it was just the moment my wife got pregnant, the urge of going flying completely dropped.
Right.
Quite interesting.
Yeah.
Quite interesting how the human mind works.
Yeah. Ulf, can you share with us a parting piece of career advice?
Get out of your head. If you have ideas in your head, get them out on paper and do them. There are so many people with amazing ideas that just keep them in their head and never have the willpower to actually do them. Prototype them, build them out, find somebody who's as passionate as you are around this idea and help you put it out, but really get them out of your head. Don't let them linger.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure there are lots of great ideas out there that just don't come to fruition in any way because people just keep them in their heads.
It's so sad.
It is. Ulf, how can we find out more about you and connect with you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. I am Sulf on Twitter, SULF on Twitter. You can always send me an email at ulfulf@center.app, and you find me in Flow and Centered, so you can just send me a friend request and friend me on Centered.
Great. Ulf, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. It's been great chatting with you.
Thank you, Phil. This was so much fun.
Hi, Phil here again. Well, I hope you enjoyed my conversation with today's guest. You can find full show notes on the website at itcareerenergizer.com/e and the number of the episode you've been listening to. If you haven't already subscribed to the show, please make sure that you do so that you get episodes automatically downloaded to your device every Monday. Thanks for listening and have a great week.
Thanks for listening to the IT Career Energizer podcast. To find out more about building a successful career in IT, visit itcareerenergizer.com.